Call your sponsor.
Call you sponsor.
Call
you
Call
sponsor.
your
Call you
sponsor.
sponsor. Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor.
And we're back.
Call
Hi, Misty.
Hello, Sam.
Shall we start with our primary purpose?
Our primary purpose is for Misty and Sanger to grow our
their friendship and
maybe help others.
just maybe.
No.
We're not quite sure. We're not attached. The one thing that has been coming up, and I don't know, I think for me it's just like an eye roll, and it's just me being really aggro, I guess. I don't know. But that's why I wanted to bring it here, is this term called the pink cloud,
Mm-hmm.
which I actually Googled, and I'm just going to read this sentence. A phase many people experience in the early stage of their recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. And it's where involves feelings of exhilaration and euphoria. So I guess, this thing of, I guess the thing that it really gets me is that it's an awareness of a feeling, but it's also the chasing of, it's like it's wrong if I'm not feeling a certain way, is how I end up interpreting it. Like, I lost the pink cloud, like, oh, the pink cloud's over. It's like, yeah, like this is about like reality. It's like no longer chasing or avoiding of feelings. It's about being in reality.
Right. So good. I'm glad you're bringing this topic up. And can you read the definition again?
Yeah, so I paraphrase. It is a phase many people experience in the early stage of their recovery from drug or alcohol addiction. Involves feelings of exhilaration or euphoria.
I mean, I think the most important part that you read there is it is a stage in the early part.
Yeah.
So it's like if you have 10 years and you're mad that you're off your pink cloud, it's like, well, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
In the early stages, when we discover there is a solution and our mind expands and is open to more possibilities than we had before, it's so exciting and exhilarating that there's so many options. And then all of a sudden we get scared, like, oh, wait, maybe there aren't as many options, and we lose that exhilaration. And now we deal with life on life's terms.
It's like, to me, it's like the feelings chasing, like I'm chasing a feeling and I'm not necessarily feeling any of the feelings because I'm trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, it's this thing that I do not think is in our literature, but it does come in the rooms. It comes in life. It's in with people, is that if you're feeling sad or mad, you're doing something wrong.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I have it that if I'm feeling sad or mad, God doesn't love me, that I'm not getting the goodie bag and the prizes. And if I go in the rooms of recovery and I say that I'm having a hard time and I don't have a solution and I don't have a button on it, that people are going to judge that I'm not working my program. When in essence, I believe when you're going through something, I mean, it says we practice these principles in all of our affairs. How am I supposed to practice something if I never go through a hard time? How's the newcomer supposed to relate to me if I don't ever have the same similar issues and walk through them and the same feelings? But there's this like unspoken thing that if you're not happy and positive all the time, you're not working a program.
Ugh, I so get that. I so get that. And sometimes even with me, and actually I was thinking this might be another episode, but I'll bring it up now, is with me, it's I'm really, as I stay this course, I'm realizing that there are certain people that I don't bring certain things to. So what happened to me the other week was I was having some feelings, and it's two sides. So one is I was having some feelings and it was a mixed bag. It was like thrilled, a little scared, it was frustrated. It was a mixed bag of a few different feelings. And there was a long timer and they said, how are you? And I was like, I'm having a mixed bag of feelings. And they said, oh, tell me more. Or they said, I'm sorry that you're feeling or something. And then they said, tell me more. And part of me is like, that's actually not what I need right now.
Right.
And part of me was like, in hindsight, I love rewinding the tape, is like, I switched the topic. I just said I'll talk about it later, whatever. Because I was like, oh, this is not my person to speak about this stuff, because they were in essence bringing me back into my brain versus me being in my body and just holding space for me.
Right. Right.
So I guess my part is, I could have asked. I mean, now I know that that person isn't. If they want to talk about shit and they want to talk about a narrative, like I'll go to that person. If I want to go storytelling and build a case file, I will definitely go there, because that's I think where they can operate. But if I need someone to hold my hand or to just hold space and allow me to actually have an experience, I think that's a totally different person.
I hear you, and I'm going to throw another option on the table.
Ooh. You mean
I,
there aren't just two options, Misty?
well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there because I heard this the other day, and it's a good challenge for me as well.
Hmm.
And it's that this person said, when somebody comes to me and they say something, I say, do you want, I'm going to mess this up, like a hug? It was 3 H's. It was almost like, do you want somebody to just listen? Do you want a hug, or do you want feedback? But it was 3 H's, like helpful, hug, or yeah, I don't know, hearsay. That's not it. But that is something that I could advocate for myself with people, where if I do feel safe with them and say, hey, I'm about to bring you something and I'm too raw to hear your experience, strength, and hope. I'm too raw to hear feedback. I'm too raw to hear the raw, raw, raw.
Yeah.
Can you make space for me? But that would be vulnerable on my part, that I would have to ask for what I want instead of this person mind reading it. And again, we're only talking about safe people. Like if you don't feel safe with them, it doesn't matter any of this.
Well, you bring up a valuable point, which in hindsight, so I guess my part is, I could have asked. I mean, now I know that that person isn't. If they want to talk about shit and they want to talk about a narrative, like I'll go to that person. If I want to go storytelling and build a case file, I will definitely go there, because that's I think where they can operate. But if I need someone to hold my hand or to just hold space and allow me to actually have an experience, I think that's a totally different person.
I hear you, and I'm going to throw another option on the table.
Ooh. You mean
I,
there aren't just two options, Misty?
well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there because I heard this the other day, and it's a good challenge for me as well.
Hmm.
And it's that this person said, when somebody comes to me and they say something, I say, do you want, I'm going to mess this up, like a hug? It was 3 H's. It was almost like, do you want somebody to just listen? Do you want a hug, or do you want feedback? But it was 3 H's, like helpful, hug, or yeah, I don't know, hearsay. That's not it. But that is something that I could advocate for myself with people, where if I do feel safe with them and say, hey, I'm about to bring you something and I'm too raw to hear your experience, strength, and hope. I'm too raw to hear feedback. I'm too raw to hear the raw, raw, raw.
Yeah.
Can you make space for me? But that would be vulnerable on my part, that I would have to ask for what I want instead of this person mind reading it. And again, we're only talking about safe people. Like if you don't feel safe with them, it doesn't matter any of this.
Well, you bring up a valuable point, which in hindsight is I wasn't clear on many different levels. I wasn't clear on what I actually needed. And I think a lot of the time I'm not necessarily clear. Not that it's a good or bad thing, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not
Yeah.
clear on what I need. So then I'm not even able to ask for it. What I get clear on is what I don't want, which I get either way, it's useful information. But what I'm getting in this conversation, I'm not necessarily clear with what I want or need.
That is so good, and that to me has been my particular issue is it's like what you said before, where it's the awareness and action, you know,
Yeah.
instead of the sitting and finding out what do I need, sitting with myself. It's about, for me, being able to be comfortable sitting with just me, myself, and I, and my thoughts and my higher self, and experience something until I get clear on what I want.
Mm.
and then going, hey, I'm going to reach out to this person, and I will preface it with, I'm in a vulnerable state and I'm not up for feedback.
Wow, that is so evolved. I think I had a conversation with you recently where I was just sharing something that had occurred and had shared. I was coming from a place of just sharing to share, um, and had mentioned that I was only sharing it specifically with you and then generally elsewhere because I didn't want a soundtrack.
Right, right. And I try and be very cognizant of when somebody comes to me with something, I say, would you like to hear my feedback, my experience, strength, and hope
Yeah,
before I launch into it? And I'm this at this point in time, it's become such a reflex.
yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. I don't know when it happened along the way. You know how it happened? I'm sure I was judging somebody else for doing it.
Oh my gosh. I don't actually necessarily know that I do that enough. Well, I also guess it depends on the dynamic of the relationship,
You're right.
So like with some sponsees, it depends who the sponsee is and what the thing is at this point where I I I I believe and have experienced that I'm just being guided in that conversation.
Hmm.
I keep my channel clear and whatever's supposed to come out comes out. Um and then there are other things where I think on the work front it's a little bit more I don't even know what the word is. I'm not calculated, but I'm more aware and less like I'm not so like just in the flow because it's a work and a professional environment, where I'm not bringing like a crystal to the party.
Right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. And for me with sponsees, I mainly launch into it.
Mm,
But when I can hear the rawness in their voice,
yeah.
I will check in and go, hey, are you just wanting to share, or are you looking for experience, strength, and hope and feedback? And sometimes they're like, I just need to share right now. Or they'll say, I think I'm looking for experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah.
And then with friends, I'm really, really good about it. I'm like 100% where they'll share with me something. And I have so many opinions. And also, I always know how to do it right.
If
So,
that were me.
so I really have to be cognizant in order to maintain my relationships to say, would you like to hear my experience, strength, and hope on this? And
Hmm.
I can't tell you, I get it like 25% of the time. No. I'm like, okay, cool. Great.
Mm. Um, this is probably going to be another episode as well, but I wanted to, since we're on this topic of relating to people, um, where do you believe in this whole attachment theory thing? Like secure attached,
Yes.
avoidant? Yeah, you do.
Yes.
And where do you find yourself falling into that? Like, I think there's three main ones and then there's sub ones, right? There's like secure attached, anxious attached, and then avoidant.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of areas, I find myself avoidant.
Uh-huh.
And then in relationships, I'm anxious attached. But I heard a new one, which is disorganized attachment.
Ooh.
And that is the home life that I grew up in, where I could do the same behavior and I never knew what the outcome was going to be. Sometimes I'd be praised for the same behavior last week that the next week I was, scolded for and grounded. And so those create like a hypervigilance. What are your thoughts on it?
So it's interesting. I recently heard on some podcast that, because the neuroplasticity of the brain.
Call your sponsor.
Call you
your
sponsor.
sponsor.
Call you
Call
sponsor.
your
Call you
sponsor.
sponsor.
Bitch.
Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor. Call.
New episode tomorrow. Send us an email bcysponsor@gmail.com.